Senhoras e senhores, pedimos a atenção por completo para que possamos iniciar um dos painéis mais especiais da história da conferência. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start one of the most special panels this conference has ever had. We're going to play a quick video before we start the panel. Vamos colocar um vídeo curto antes de começar.
Garbage trucks, forklifts, warehouses, and artificial intelligence. All of these were turned into $5 billion companies by American entrepreneur Brad Jacobs. At 27, Brad founded Hamilton Resources, an oil brokerage that traded barrels around the world. In just 4 years, the company was generating over $1 billion in annual revenue. In the 90s, Brad built United Waste Systems, a company that collected and managed garbage across the United States, which he later sold for $2.5 billion. He used that money to start United Rentals, a company that rents out heavy equipment like forklifts and cranes to construction firms. It became the largest equipment rental company in the world. Then came XPO Logistics. Brad took a small freight company and turned it into a $17 billion logistics powerhouse, helping businesses move goods across borders, cities, and supply chains. In 2021, he launched GXO Logistics, which runs high-tech warehouses for global brands like Nike, Apple, and Nestle, organizing, packing, and shipping millions of online orders using robots and automation. Now, he's building QXO, a company aiming to modernize industrial supply with software, artificial intelligence, and automation. Think Amazon, but for factories and distributors. In 2024, Brad encapsulated his decades of entrepreneurial wisdom in his book, How to Make a Few Billion Dollars. This work offers a deep dive into the strategies and philosophies that propelled him to build it all. Brad didn't just build one great company. He built 5 in fragmented, unglamorous industries and turned them into revenue-generating machines. Today, he shares the stage with Jorge Paulo, another master of scale and efficiency, for a conversation about what it takes to operate and grow at the highest level.
Please welcome to the stage a man that needs no introduction, Jorge Paulo. Please welcome to the stage, Brad Jacobs.
You feel the pressure? I feel the pressure.
Bom, boa tarde a todos. For Brad, I'm only going to speak boa tarde in Portuguese, and the rest will be in English now. And I'm a great fan of Brad. I really admire what he has put together, the way he has worked. He has built some very big companies, and he's done it in a way which I like. He's very involved in the management of these companies. He invests a lot of his own money in the projects he's built up, and he has developed a system of doing it over and over again and repeating his success. So we are, as a businessman and somebody who's interested in building companies, I have a lot to learn from Brad. I'm a little bit worried here because I'm supposed to interview him, but he has said that he's going to be asking me questions also. So we're ready. But before we get going, how many of you want to be philanthropists in the future and would like to help others and create big projects? Okay. How many of you want to be a billionaire? Okay. So I recommend very much that you read his book, How to Make a Few Billion Dollars. It's a good book to tell you how to become a billionaire. But Brad, Tell us a little bit about your youth and how that affected what you became later and how it affected your business principles and like that.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here, and I appreciate it. And thank you all for taking time to listen to us. My youth. I still think I'm in my youth. I still feel very young. I don't feel mature at all. I don't feel like an adult. I feel like an adolescent, and I feel I have the same mental energy and to some extent the same physical energy and even more of the spiritual energy of someone young. So I don't know. I don't know if I buy into this concept of you're young and then you're old. I think you're kind of what you want to be. I was kind of older in some ways when I was younger. The biggest.
What did you want to be when you were very young?
Different times I wanted to be different things. My mother wanted me to be president of the United States. I wasn't so interested. At some point I wanted to be a rabbi, but I lost interest in that. At one point I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a musician very strongly. And I still identify as a musician, even though I don't play music and practice music like I should. But I identify as a musician. And I think of all the different things I did earlier in my life, the music is what influenced my business career the most because it was involved in improvisation and teamwork, harmony.
Good. So what was your big dream then, and what is your big dream now?
My big dream. So my big dream when I was a kid is I wanted to make $100,000 because we had stagflation with Jimmy Carter and interest rates were in the high teens. So you could take $100,000 and put it in a Bank of America certificate of deposit and you'd make 18% on that. So you'd make $1,500 a month. And I figured I could retire after I made the $100,000 and I'd make $1,500 a month and I could meditate and I could do my music and I could just really have a deep life. But I started a company and we started making $100,000 a week, $100,000 a day. It was just kind of kept going. And then I just always intended to stop at some point, but I just never stopped. I just kept going.
And what do you think is your edge? What
My
is your edge? Why have you done better than most, and why have you been so successful?
Well, I think without trying to be falsely modest, I do think luck matters. I think where you're born helps or hurts. What education you get helps or hurts. What social environment you grow up in helps or hurts. So I lucked out on some of those things. But I think once I was the beneficiary of that, I think it was drive. I think it was motivation. I think it was determination. My edge was intensity of focus, concentration at the obliteration of everything else. Just concentrate on one specific thing at a time and go really deep into that and be passionate about it and work 7 days a week from you wake up to when you go to sleep and just don't do anything else. I think that was my edge. What was your edge? Because you've done much better than I have. I should be interviewing you.
No.
This is a role reversal here.
No. Well, my edge, I think, is I work very hard. I chase things very hard. I'm focused. I don't try to do too many things at the same time. And I like everything I do a lot. So if you do things that you like and if you work very hard and focus, you get there.
And that got you where you are now. And the second question you had, the follow-up one was, and what's your dream now?
Oh, the dream now is to make the companies I'm involved with continue, be very successful. Some of them are doing okay. Some could do better. I'm trying to improve how they do. And my dream is that my family continues watching over some of these companies and continuing the philanthropic work I do. I mean, I do a lot of stuff in education and training people and giving especially Brazilians a better chance in life. And I hope the idea is that the companies I'm involved with will fund the foundation that helps these philanthropic projects.
I'm curious, in this room here, how many people either indirectly or directly have benefited in some way from Jorge Paulo Lemon's and his wife's philanthropy. Wow. Okay. So you've touched a lot of lives.
Well,
Good for you.
So, Brad, what mistakes did you make?
The right question would be, what mistakes did I not make? Because I really have made every mistake you can possibly think of. The biggest category of mistakes is the same as what's the biggest category of what's made me or one successful, which is people choices. If you pick wonderful people, and wonderful needs to be defined, but if you pick very wonderful people, you will succeed. The chances of your success go way, way up. If you pick the wrong people, dishonest people or incompetent people or people who don't work together in a team well or people that just aren't as great as you thought they were, it can really slow you down quite a bit. So I would say the biggest mistakes I've made have been, once in a while I've made a whopper of a decision on a person and it had big consequences. But I'm okay with that because mistakes are something I've learned to not just accept, but to actually enjoy and to realize that that's part of the game. And I'm making mistakes now. I expect myself to make mistakes. I expect myself to make a lot of mistakes because I'm making a lot of decisions. So like you know, when you're running big business, you're making decisions all day long. And sometimes you don't have time to really think them through really, really long and carefully and thought. You have to make a snap decision because they're waiting for you to decide. You hear a little bit, you make a decision, and fortunately most of them are right. Once in a while, some are going to be wrong. That's just the way it's going to be.
How do you find and pick the people that work with you?
How I pick the people is very, very carefully. So for someone to work at one of my companies on a senior level, you get about 8 or 9 interviews, each of about an hour to hour and a half. You get a questionnaire, which is in the back of my book. The question is 45 questions of unusual questions for an interview. HR people actually don't like asking some of those questions, but I need to ask those questions because I need to know who the person is. I need to know what motivates the person. I need to know what are they really all about? What defines them? What's their goal? What are they trying to achieve? And can I do a deal? Is this somebody who I can provide what they're looking for? Most of the time, the majority of that is money, but it's not the only thing. People want development, they want leadership, they want to be able to make a difference. They want to apply things they've learned. So you really need to understand their mind, where they are. So the process of hiring someone is a long one. I try to do most things fast, but that I do pretty slowly.
If you're using the same questionnaire, don't they know what you're going to ask and they all learn how to answer it? And how do you?
There is some of that. Yeah.
How do you get away from that?
So for the last 15 years, I've been a student of a guy called Dick Houston. He's written a couple books, and he used to be the head of polygraphy at the CIA, and then he developed a model of detecting deception. So he's the world's expert in detecting deception, knowing when you're lying. And so I've studied that. So even if a person is not telling the truth, and according to the model of detecting deception, you can detect that pretty easily. It's very objective. That tells you something too. So the fact that they're insincere is something is a valuable information to know. So yeah, there's some pollution in the data because they know the questions ahead of time, but on balance, we still get to where we need to go.
So after being so successful, what keeps you going?
I haven't gone to therapy in about 15 years, so I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Okay. So I knew what motivated me when I did 2 years of therapy, but it's been so long. I don't know. I don't know that you really know what motivates you. Everyone thinks they know. People think they know what motivates them, but maybe it's something else that's motivating them. But for me, I just love what I'm doing. I'm having fun. I like starting businesses. That's the funnest part of I usually go in 10-year cycles. And then I get bored and sell the company or start a new company, whatever. But the first few years for me are the most enjoyable ones because it's pure art. It's pure creativity. You're starting off with a completely blank slate and you can paint whatever you want. You have complete freedom. And you get to select the people you're going to spend all this time with, which is a wonderful thing to have the freedom and luxury to spend time with people you love and respect and admire. That's probably the thing I value one of the top 5 things I value in life. So you get to pick the people. You get to design the organization from the start. What's decentralized, what's centralized, what's shared, you get to figure out all the delegations of authority. You understand how do you get what are the main things we're doing? What are we trying to achieve in order to make a lot of money? What are the top 10 or so things that we got to do? And then who's going to be in charge of that? And then how do you compensate people so that if they succeed at that, they make a lot of money? So that part, when you're initially setting up the culture of the organization, for me is the funnest part. So the next 2-3 years should be fun. It should go downhill after that, but
What have you found out about remunerating people?
pay them more than you should. I think I'm a big advocate of overpaying. I think overpaying is underpaying, because if you want to succeed in a big way, you need good people. You just can't do it yourself. There's too much to do. You know that. And if you want really good people, they have choices. There's a lot of competition for great talent. So one of the things you have to provide is money. They have to have a real opportunity to make a lot of money. Now, I like to structure the deal so they don't make that much money if we just do okay, or even if we do better than okay. But they can make a ton of money if we do fabulously successful. So I like to structure compensation packages that are long-ended, so a lot of equity that vests at the end, so no one thinks about going anywhere, and ones that are heavily equitized for the top people. So everyone's thinking about, how do we get share price to go up long term? How do we create share price long? Everyone's in that mindset all day long. Below the top part of the organization, I don't like using equity at all. I find it hasn't worked when I've done it, because it doesn't correlate. If you're a truck driver, you're a warehouse worker, you're not really following stock so much, but you are following a bonus. So there I like to compensate people on what they're in charge of, what their job is. Do you find our philosophies of compensation are, when you're similar or different?
Yeah, we've always overpaid and tried to incentivize people maybe excessively, like that. So we haven't really figured it out what is ideal, but we try to make sure that the compensation of the people that work with our executives, since we're in public companies, are equivalent to what the public investors are making, like that. Try to link it so that you don't have the executive making a lot of money and the investors not making any money, like that. So that's our basic orientation.
But you've made people who've been associated with you have become billionaires and multi-billionaires. I've made investors billionaires. I've never made an employee or a partner of mine a billionaire. I've given people the opportunity to make themselves hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, many, many, many people, millions of dollars. But I haven't caught up to you yet on the billionaire stuff. I have to learn that nut. I haven't figured that one out.
Yeah, well, we figure we want to attract the best possible people, and we started off as brokers and stockbrokers and things like that.
In Brazil,
and then the way we didn't have money, we didn't have a name, so the way we could attract the best possible people was by giving them partnership, and that worked quite well, and we did well. So we always remained with our model of attracting very, very good people and top people and making them partners in our business. And so they did very well, sometimes did better even than the public investors, as you say. But it's been our way. But
all those companies, you've been in many different industries like I have. Which one made the most amount of money for shareholders? All your different ventures.
Our best deal of all was obviously the brewery, where we bought a very small by world standards brewery, and we invested $60 million in 1989.
60 million.
60 million. And well, that's the 60 million we invested was about 20% of the company we bought, which is what we still have of the company that it is now. And
you haven't diluted.
what?
You have not diluted.
No.
Amazing.
I mean, we haven't been diluted. We still have the same number of shares, which is 22% or something like that. And the company's now worth 120 billion, so 20% is nice.
It worked out nice.
Sum. And,
No. I'll drink to that.
and yeah,
This is AB InBev.
yeah, it's AB and Bev. And,
Are you worried about marijuana
But,
taking
you
market
know,
share?
Our first 30 years were better than our last 7 years. So even though it was very, very successful, it slowed down.
This is life.
And we're fixing it, and it's being fixed. There are things we didn't do right, and we're trying to do right now. So
Do you worry about, not a joke, do you worry about kids, younger generation smoking weed instead of drinking beer, and you may lose your customers?
well,
Gummy bears and all these other edibles and
I worry about
mushrooms. And
drugs. I worry about that, and you know, there are a lot of people that think beer will go in the direction of cannabis drinks and things like that. But beer itself is very low alcohol, 4% or like that. So I don't think it's as big a problem as hard liquor or like that. It's more, we look at beer as a fun thing, enjoyable thing, and gets people together and makes them happy and like that, but not as really a hard liquor drink or like that. Yeah. So Brad, so how do you match your success and like that with your personal life?
I don't have a personal life.
You don't have a personal life.
I really don't. I confess, I don't have a. I don't think you can do that. I mean, I don't know how to do that. If I did, I would do it. But I like to sleep a few hours.
Well, but you have kids, don't you?
I have kids, and I have a fantastic relationship with my kids and my grandkids. But it's very surgical. I don't spend a long amount of times with them, and I never did. My wife was an amazing ambassador, always like doing my diplomacy with the kids. Dad's going to be here. He's only going to be here for an hour. So like, be nice and hang out. So I don't know. We grew up the kids. I spent high quality time with them, but it was not huge quantity time. But I don't have much of a personal life out of that. I'm not complaining at all whatsoever because I don't like doing frivolous things. I like doing important things, consequential things. But I don't do a lot of extracurricular stuff.
So what was a bad decision that you made?
Oh, like I said before, it's about people. I've hired people, I put people in leadership positions, sometimes that were too much focused on cost cutting. And all they wanted to do was find things to cut. And they cut, but they forgot to grow the revenue. So yeah, we were growing margins, but the growth slowed down and the customer service went down. On the other hand, I've hired some people who have this proclivity just to grow at any cost. And they're not worrying about cost control. And so, yeah, they're growing the top line. Hey, what happened to our margins here? The margins are going down. So those are the two biggest mistakes I've made is hiring executives and putting them in charge of a few billion or however many revenue who didn't understand the business in its totality of the need to both grow the top line and delight the customer and at the same time operate with minimum inefficiency and minimum waste. That's been the main mistake I've made over and over again.
Brad, how do you look at risk? How do you measure risk? What kind of a risk taker are you? Or when do you think it's worthwhile to take a risk or not?
I do take risks, and I think it's important to take risks. I think if you don't take risks, you're not going to achieve much. On the other side, you have to understand the risk. So it has to be an intelligent risk to be taking. The upside has to, I like to take risks where the odds are rigged in my advantage. that there's a very high probability I'm going to succeed, nothing certain, and the upside is far, far higher than the downside. And thirdly, I can live with the downside. If it doesn't work out, I can afford it. But I want to be taking risks that are evaluated within those three parameters every day. I want to be deploying capital and deploying resources and making bets on things. That's business. Business is listening to everybody and then going into your own self and just quietly thinking about, well, what do I think? Now I just heard what everybody else thinks. I've heard lots of, we did surveys and customer surveys, employee surveys and board meetings. So we got a lot of input here. Now I got to shut that off and I got to go into my own silence and my own quietness, all my own private world. And I got to really think about it. I got to think about, how do I visualize this playing out? I got to picture it in my mind. And then I've got to say, if it works out well, what's in it for us? And if it works out poorly, how bad is it going to be? So I think you have to take risks. Do you agree with that? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I think you have to take risks. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't do anything. Yeah. So,
boring.
Yeah, I've taken some very big risks, and I've been through some big problems once in a while, and that's part of doing business. And you learn a lot, and you have to bounce back. Have you had to bounce back many times?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. Every day is a drama. There's every single day. But there's like, these used to be these television shows in hospitals, and it was the ER, and people would come in, and this guy's got a gunshot wound, and this guy's a heart attack. That's called being a CEO. And when you're a CEO, it's just nonstop crises that have to be resolved real quickly. And that's a good thing. That means there's a lot of activity going on. There's a lot of change going on. There's a lot of execution of big plans. And things go wrong now and then. And you need to be dealing with those issues. You need to be dealing with the tech problems. You're rolling out too fast. The tech people can't keep up with you. Or maybe the tech people can keep up, the HR people can't keep up, and you can't staff up properly in time. Or tons of problems. So you need to have a mentality of, problems are not just all right. Problems are things to enjoy. Every time you have a problem, it's a way to make money. Every time you can solve that problem, you made more money. So if you don't have problems, you don't have an opportunity to make money. If you don't like problems, and you don't like problem solving, being in business is not for you. This is not. The world of business, my business mentor when I was younger used to remind me, is problem solving. It's about problems. And you need to adapt a mentality of enjoying and embracing problems and enjoying solving problems. And I like solving problems with teams of real smart people. I get a lot of enjoyment from that. I have a question for you. So we've got hundreds of very bright, probably brighter than us. These are very bright people. You can tell just looking at them, all paying attention. There's some people making notes even. And they're very ambitious. You ask the question, how many want to be philanthropists? 2/3 of the room raised their hand. Yes, who wants to be a billionaire? Like pretty much everybody raised their hand. Some people frowned and looked at the billionaire people, but okay. But most people wanted to be billionaires here. So these are ambitious people. So you're in a position to help them here, even more than all these donations you give them. What's your best advice for these folks? What's your best advice?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
They might beat you to it.
No, my best advice is try very hard, do what you like, find good people to work with, and take risks. I found out that people who study very much, go to school too much maybe, they're not risk takers. The risk taker is usually the guy who's maybe dumber, not as smart, but he's willing to jump and like that. And I think many of the people here who are going to a very good school or go to business school later or like that, they're really not really willing to take risks. So, but find something that you like, work with people that you like, and try as hard as you can. And when there's a setback, come back again and try again, or figure out how to do it better, or like that.
I love it.
What what do you think of your, you're in the private equity business. Too.
No, I'm not.
No.
I'm really not. I hate
I know,
when people...
but what do you think of the private equity guys who have big funds and do a lot of investments at the same time, like that? How do you compare yourself to them? I think you're much better, but...
Well, I don't know about better or worse, it's different. I'm certainly not a private... What you just described is not me, because I don't invest passively in a portfolio of many companies and then take out some costs and then flip them after a few years. That's a business model that's made a lot of people rich in private equity world. I don't like it. I don't like it. That doesn't attract me. For me, that's not being in the game, actively being a CEO, recruiting the people, getting the team to work together and kill the competition instead of killing each other. It's not finding ways that we can communicate with each other in sophisticated, efficient ways, in professional ways, respectful ways, in dynamic ways that we get a lot of stuff done. Like figuring out who the people are, what the project's going to be that's going to make all the money, how do we visualize that clearly and then executing that. I really enjoy that. Like that is really very, very personally satisfying to me, more than the money. So for me, that's really the path that I want to take there.
So do you think of yourself much more as a manager than an artist, or are you an artist also?
I'm both, but I'm more the artist, because the creative aspect of thinking differently than you do normally, trying to get yourself in brain functioning and mental functioning and a psychological meditative state that's not normal, that's not typical, and then seeing things in a bigger way, and then developing confidence in that, and then being willing to take risk and execute on that, and then being able to get other people to follow you to do this big, crazy idea. That, to me, is our artist more than managerial. However, once you've got all the people, you better be good at management, because otherwise you just have a bunch of people sitting around in an office not doing anything. So I think managing is important. But of the two, I think the artist part is more important. And private equity is not so artistic. It's more passive. It's not as dynamic.
Can somebody tell me how much time we have? I have no idea.
10 minutes and 34 seconds.
Oh.
You think we can come up with 10 more minutes of stuff, material? I don't know. I'm running out of stuff.
I didn't know. So what's your advice to these younger folks and whatever they want to do and like that?
That's the only question I prepared for, because I didn't know what questions you're going to ask. I don't like hearing questions ahead of time. I hate going to presentations where it's obvious that the moderator told the person the questions and they practiced them and their PR people gave them a list of questions. But I figured, I'm coming to Harvard here. They're going to ask, what's your best advice for the people here? Here's my advice. My advice first is figure out what you really want to do in life. So most of you raised your hand, I want to be a billionaire. Do you really want to be a billionaire? It's very overrated. I know a lot of billionaires. I know a lot. It's very overrated. I remember I had dinner once with Warren Buffett, you know much better than I do, and a few other couples. And it was an interesting dinner because he was trying to get us to sign this giving pledge and to give away half your money and to not give it to your kids. And my wife was out of town, so I went with my oldest daughter. And she's kicking me under the table every time Warren is saying, don't give a lot of money to your kids. They're going to get on drugs. They're going to get out. They're going to lose all their motivation. I can give you 10 examples of kids, they inherited a couple $1 billion, their life went right down the toilet. And all like that. But he did make an interesting comment, which was, once you have even a few $100 million, that's pretty much it. Your lifestyle's not going to change very much whether you have $300 million or $30 billion. It's just not. You're going to be able to affect whoever you're going to give that money to, whether it's your children, whether it's your charities, or whoever it's going to affect them. It's really not going to affect you very much. So if you really want to be a billionaire, it's a lot of money, and there's a lot of sacrifice to doing that. It's an enormous amount of sacrifice because you can't do it working 50 hours a week and then taking 3 or 4 weeks vacation a year. I don't know anyone who's done it. I don't know a single person that's done that other than through inheritance. But anyone who's self-made, you have to be imbalanced. You have to be completely imbalanced in the favor of the work and you have to turn the work into your life. The concept of work-life balance has to be like completely irrelevant. It has to be like what your work is. You have to be so absorbed in it, so intense about it, so obsessed with it, and identified with it that there's no interest in doing anything else. There's just nothing else is interesting. Like, this is so fun. This is so mesmerizing. Like, wow, why would I waste time doing something else? That's not for most people. Most people want a normal life where you spend a lot of time with your family and your friends and you goof off and enjoy life and go to concerts and go to sports and do whatever you want to do and do sports and exercise. And that's all out the window. If you're going to strive to be a zillionaire, it's just not going to happen. So my first piece of advice is to figure out what you really want. And maybe that is to make a lot of money. If you have the fire in your belly that, man, I am going to make a few $1 billion, that's a fact. And I'm just going to do that. And I'm willing to do what it takes within legal and ethical parameters to get there. But everything else, as long as it's legal and ethical, I'm going to do it. Well, you should do it and enjoy it. And if you make that decision to, I'm going to dedicate my life towards money making, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't be ashamed of that. Don't think there's something wrong with that. Don't think that's a lower calling than being something else. That's your calling. That's what you want to do. Go for it. I did it. It was real fun. But you really got to dedicate yourself to it. It's not a part-time job. It's not a full-time job. It's an all-encompassing, all-consuming lifestyle. And so listening to me talk, if you're saying, I could really get into that, go for it. If listening to me talk about something, actually, the more he talks, I don't want to do that. That's like a bad thing to do. I want to enjoy life more. Don't do it. You're going to be unhappy.
What is your view on philanthropy? Do you think by running companies well, you're doing enough philanthropy because you're hiring people, giving jobs, and creating them, or do you do something else in the philanthropic area?
Those are two very different types of philanthropy, but they are both philanthropy. By philanthropy, anybody know Greek? What is philanthropy? What does that mean? What's an literal interpretation of philanthropy? I'm at Harvard. You must all speak Greek, right? Latin? Philanthropy. No one knows what philanthropy, the etymology of philanthropy? Well, great, then I'll make it up since nobody knows. What philanthropy means, what philanthropy means giving for the sake of others, in my definition. You're taking things that you own, resources, money, and you're transferring the ownership of that to someone else so that they get the benefit of it rather than you. Of course, you get the benefit of it too, in the sense of a psychological, emotional sense of self-satisfaction, self-esteem. There's a lot of pleasure that you can testify to this, from helping other people. You help other people, it's like, I don't know, we're programmed to help other people. So and philanthropy is a great thing. At the same time, building a business and employing people and making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs that wouldn't exist otherwise, and these people get to make a living, that's a big deal. That is a form of philanthropy. But I don't know if it literally would be philanthropy.
Oh, we have 5 minutes left. So, Tabatan João, what do you want to ask Brad?
What do you want to ask Jorge Paulo?
Okay. Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Well, I'm very inspired by what Larissa made earlier. So I wanted to ask Brad how he sees what's happening in the US right now and what should we fear or hope for the future, for the next years.
Nice to see you again.
That's on him. Thank you very much.
Well, I can see we're ending on a light question. That's of no So we're in a very interesting time in the United States. Very interesting time, which could end up, there's a big range of outcomes of where this could land. Some really good, some really bad. I can't predict. But some like what President Trump is doing. Some like the fact that he's a disruptor, that he's got his vision of America first, and he wants to even out what he believes is the inequities of other countries taking advantage of the US in trade over the years, over decades. And other people feel that maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong, but the method of him going about it in a very violent, kind of disrespectful way to the rest of the world is going to have karma, it's going to have bad consequences. And even if we win the trade war, which is a hard war to lose, it's asymmetric because America consumes so much more than it sells. So equal tariffs have a different numerator. So he'll win a trade war. It's almost impossible not to. The other side will suffer more, and he can take suffering as long as it's other people suffering. So I think, I don't know how it's going to end up. I think what I look at it from as a business person is there's volatility here, maximum volatility. Volatility can be your friend. Volatility can be your friend because things get mispriced. Things get either overpriced or underpriced based on emotion and hysteria. Well, that's a really good time to invest when things are when pricing is dislocated, like in M&A right now. I'm doing a lot of M&A right now. Not a lot of people are buying right now. There's some sellers. People are scared to buy because they don't know what's going to happen. Well, if you want to make a bet here, you might be able to, and you're willing to deploy capital, you can buy things much cheaper than you could a few months ago. So from a business point of view, I'm cautiously optimistic for people who are capable of navigating volatility. But if you're not good at doing volatility, then this is a bad time to be in business because there's a lot of strange, unusual, unexpected things happening. So I don't know. We could end up in a good place. Possible. I'd like to be optimistic, but there certainly are some clouds on the horizon. Thank you for your question. Well, what do you think?
Oh, I think things are a little bit too messy for my taste. I believe in disrupting a bit and shaking things, and they're certainly shaking it, but I think they're shaking it a bit too much. And, one doesn't really know the outcome and just have to navigate through it. But it could have a reasonable outcome, but it could also be quite disruptive, I think.
Certainly disruptive. Yeah.
We have to wait for a while to find out, but I'm still a great believer in the United States and the philosophy here and all the entrepreneurs that you have in the States like that. So it will turn out okay, but one doesn't know exactly how long this uncertainty will last or what may happen with it. Okay, Larissa prepared the video about yourself, and she has a question.
I actually did not have a question, but my husband was the narrator. So yes, shout out to him. But since we're here at Harvard, Temple of Learning. And Brad, we saw in the video that you've mastered so many different industries, like cranes, garbage collecting, AI. No one's born knowing those things. How do you learn? What is your process of learning? Walk us through that, please. And the audience whispered at me to ask you if they want to work for you or with you, what should they do?
Send me a LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I actually read my messages. I respond to them. Sometimes it takes me a week or two to respond, but I always respond. So hit me up on LinkedIn. In terms of your larger question of how do you learn all these industries, I'll let you in on a little secret. I never learned them. I pretty much learned the business. It takes about 10 years to learn a business. And if you look at my bio, every 10 years I changed. There's something else. So every industry I was in, I was always an outsider. And people were saying, gee, you're not an oil guy. And then I go to my next industry and say, you're not a waste guy, you're an oil guy. So I always had credibility from my previous job, but not my current one. And it was a justifiable criticism because I did not know the industries. I'm going into an industry right now, I'm a neophyte, brand new. I look at that as an advantage. I look at that as an advantage because I don't think about things in a conventional, normal way that everybody else does. And so I can come in with a completely entrepreneurial look at it and redesign the whole thing. I don't think it's important to learn the business as much as it is to learn the business of business. Managing people, systems, processes, human interactions. That is important to learn. And that you learn on the job by doing it.
Brad, we're out of time.
Went fast.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I,
Thank you.
I really admire what you have done. I've learned a lot from you. I'm learning, hope to keep learning. And I'm an investor in his project, so I'm happy to continue learning and think you're doing a great job and think we're actually fellow artists in a way and trying to build things and make them better.
Mucho obrigado.
Over